Hello, everyone. From my left, this is Jan Rudowski, Director of Content Acquisitions and Sales at FTV Prva.
Hello.
Next to him, is a lady with a wonderful name, Katarina Edelstein, SVP East Europe Area Leader, Nielsen.
Hi, everyone.
Hartwig Rademacher, VP, National Sales and Content Management and Senior Project Manager, Business Development, RTL Germany. Very important person. And last but not least, Matej Lončarić, Director of Video Operations and Media Brands, Jumbus,
yeah.
Jumbus, right. And Miss 7.
Hello.
So basically on this continuous topic that we have, is free-to-air going to survive and keep reaching mass audience? We have, as you call yourself, a dinosaur free-to-air,
yep.
And Nielsen, who is going to measure everything and have data to tell us what's going on. And we have RTL as a major player in the market who's already doing things to fight the disruptions and follow all the trends and keep the mass audience. And then the disruptor, who already reached mass audience. Very diversified panel. I hope we can go through a lot of interesting topics in 45 minutes. We're going to go first to Nielsen, obviously, because I think you have the best insight in what's actually going on, what are the data saying, especially maybe in Eastern Europe, and what are you seeing right now in FTAs and with the disruptions and content and everything.
Yeah. I think the question itself is FTA still alive? Is it the right tool to reach mass audiences? The answer is yes. And we see it across all of Eastern European markets, and we measure majority of Eastern European markets in Adriatics, Central Europe, and also Eastern Europe. We do see that FTAs are still 70, 80, 90, depending where you are in Eastern Europe, of the share of viewing. And of course, from commercial audiences perspective, it remains and continues to be the key to reach those audiences. I think what we increasingly talk with all of our clients in Eastern Europe is the underlying trend. And while for the past 20 years and today, we're still enjoying that benefit of being the key tool to reach mass audiences, we need to kind of look ahead, a couple years ahead, or the next generation of audiences. How are they going to be behaving? We know that TV viewing is a function of a life stage. So 35 plus or below, they have different viewing, they spend different amount of time in front of TV screen, which is normal. And we analyzed across all Eastern European markets the 25 years people 10 years ago and today. And today, they're now 35, they're part of your commercial audiences, they actually watch more TV than the 35-year-olds 10 years ago. Which is great. It means that the time we spend in front of TV is the same, and free-to-air is a great tool today to reach those audiences and make, hopefully, great money. However, if I look at the 25-year-olds today, they are behaving very differently. They spend also less time in front of TV, the same that their predecessors 10 years ago, but the way they spend time in front of TV is fundamentally different. Half of their time is not on free-to-air, or even not on any channel. It's streaming, or it's other entertainment in front of TV screen. And the danger is that they develop habits and loyalties in early stages of their life, and they will bring those habits into the new life stage, where the way they will be spending their time in front of TV will be very, very different. And of course, disruptions in technology, COVID has kind of amplified that. But once we develop new habits, it's very difficult to take them away. If you think of it from a time shift viewing perspective, it was a predecessor of streaming. But people adopted the habit and they enjoy it. They keep the good stuff together with them in all of their life stages. So I think this is an important one to watch out, to see how are we going to be grooming and making loyal the future audiences. Do we have the tools to reach them today with our content of free-to-air to make sure that from the time that they're 5 years old, 10 years old, or 15 years old, they are loyal to your content? they are growing up with your content. And this is something that we increasingly keep talking to clients to start investing in building loyalties to those audiences. So when they become commercial audience and when they spend 3 hours in front of TV, and we see that across different countries it's on average around 3 hours, it's the right 3 hours, right? And it's not digital 3 hours on a different device, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of, I hope we will talk a bit more about that, but this is a kind of underlying trend that we encourage our clients to look at, because there is still plenty of time, right, before this new habit becomes the new normal.
So, Hartwig, would you agree that maybe as a starting point, FTA had an upper hand in already had built a brand, they could reach audience, that FTA were already in every home when the disruption happened, when new players were starting coming into our business. So can you tell us a little bit about how RTL Group recognized what kind of disruptions might happen? How do you see yourself now? Are you keeping the mass audience and finding new ways to do exactly this, to connect new audiences maybe to your brand, or you're diversifying? Tell us a little bit of how you are dealing with this situation.
Yeah, I mean, we basically see two impacts. The first one is that we have a continued fragmentation in the market, of course. Everybody sees that, and I agree with Katharina. But the good news is that video content consumption itself is growing. So people are watching more video content, and that's a good news for every company, for every broadcaster, streamer, whatever. I think the answer from RTL is, we used to be, I mean, to make it in a short form, we used to be a broadcaster. Now we're going to be a streaming broadcaster. So what we see is a decline of to reach the mass audience, especially in younger target groups, of course. So those days are over where you still got 98% of them. Now I think in the younger target group, 14 to 29, it's about 82% now in Germany. I mean, the younger, the less reach you have, of course. But they are still, and that's, like I said, the good news, they are still interested in video content. And so what we're going to do is also, we have our streaming app, RTL Plus, which is very successful. We already have 3 million subscribers now, and had to grow with 1 billion in the last year. So what we, of course, offer them a habit of using, consuming good video content, non-linear. So we are going basically both ways.
Okay. So, Mate, maybe you could pick up from here,
yes.
Since you're targeting different audience and new generation, and using new ways to get to the audience. But I would like you to tell a little bit about what you're doing to the audience before we...
Okay, so we are 24SATA. 24SATA previously, and it is a newspaper company. 8 years ago, we started our digital transformation. And the main pillar of our digital transformation is video content, as the guy from the RTL said. Everything today, and we saw it 8 years ago, will be video. So when you go and visit some portals or some social media, you will see the vertical video, you will see a long tail video, you will see a short format videos. And we said, okay, we have this strong brand that is called 24SATA, but we see the young audience somewhere else. And we said, okay, we need to come and attract that audience. We are very data-driven. And all our, everything that we do, or when we are creating the content, we see the audience in little bubbles. Because in digital, every person has their own interest. And we are looking to these bubbles and how we can connect them and bring superhero projects that become viral. Our shows, talent shows, and drama series are most watched teen series in the region, like Tia Diaries and The Shared Dream. And we are actually creating the new culture of new generations with which we are growing and with which we are transforming 24SATA into a new media that will create more and more originals, and in that will in future people and users will pay for some of our premium content. We see that audience in Croatia is ready for that. We did one research for in Croatia on a target of teens, and 65% of them said that if there is a show on a streaming platform that they will need to pay to watch it, that they are ready to pay it. We had one focus group where we asked teens, why are you paying? I mean, you can watch it for free. And they said, if you're not paying, you're a product. So they are diversifying themselves, and they are ready to pay for a quality content. And that's how we are actually, as Katarina said, we are preparing for this big transformation that will come in 5 to 10 years, where the audience that has, for example, now 30 years will have 40 years. That will be that is driving the commercial business with the media companies, and that's why we also are buying formats and licensing the formats from, for example, Global Agency, where we transformed a traditional format into a new digital-first format. We were very, we were like, when we bought that format, we were like thinking, oh, what are we going to do with it? It's traditional, it's TV-oriented, and it was a huge, huge risk. And then we checked all the numbers, we checked how to get to the audience, and what are the things that triggers the audience, and how we can get the audience to watch that format. We published that first episode of that culinary format last Thursday, and we have now 2 million views of that content. So we are transforming the formats into a digital, and we see that there is a huge potential.
So, finally, us from free to airs. So, can we say that content is, however we look at things and our strategies and platforms, still content is the key? And how do you see, are you making a strategy to go into digital and non-linear and streaming, or do you feel as a strong FTA channel that already has mass audience and family viewing, do you tend to focus on quality content, live events, news? What is the type of content that you think is going to keep the mass audience with free-to-air?
We launched 2 new free-to-air channels last year alone, so we are betting heavily on the fact that free-to-air is the future, or at least part of the future. We'll be also launching a VOD platform later this year. But when I was thinking about what is it that we're going to be discussing here, whether free TV is still the best way to reach the mass audience, I asked my research team to give me some numbers to back this up, to see how free-to-air is strong in the Czech Republic, how it is great. And then I realized I'll be sitting next to Katarina. And if I would try to dazzle you with numbers, it would be like if I were to play tennis with Rafael Nadal.
It's okay, go ahead.
It would be cute, but pointless. So, and I thought, basically everybody in this room, I think we're here because we love stories, right? We love to tell stories, we love to sell stories. So I just thought I'll tell you a little story. It's really short, so bear with me. I live in an apartment building, and we have these tenant meetings every 6 months where we decide, shall we repair the lift? What shall we do about the dogs that are peeing in the hallways, stuff like that. And for the COVID reasons, this meeting hasn't been held for 12 months, and we had a long agenda to go through. And it was 5 minutes to 8, and a lot of the people started leaving the meeting, and younger people, like women aged 35, moms that I know. Because I'm on the board of the meeting, I said, guys, sorry, we still have 10 more issues to deal with. What's the matter? And they said, well, but the zoo is starting in 15 minutes. And I was torn down the middle because on one hand I wanted the job done, and on the other hand, zoo is our show. So I was telling them, yes, of course, please go watch the zoo. And then I was thinking, what makes them to go and watch the zoo at this very point in time? Because they can watch it on catch-up, they can watch it on reverse EPG. And I think part of it is it's social. They want to be watching the shows at the same time as other people are watching the shows, because when they go to the office the next day or to the shop and somebody asks, have you seen the latest episode? They can talk with them about the latest episode, which is something that on streaming the question is never have you seen. The question is, are you watching? Are you watching The Mandalorian? No, I'm watching Ozark. Are you watching Stranger Things? No, I'm watching, Better Call Saul.
Yeah, but I think that we all talked about Tinder Swindler. It was a story that we all talked about, and we see that media and streaming media is becoming transmedia, because there is finally a great content and formats that are becoming so viral, and people are starting to talk so much about that they're changing the laws either when there is a great content on streaming platforms.
Yeah, but I think Jan is bringing up a very valid point. There are certain things in content, which is live events, news, football events, concerts, reality shows, which it's a part of a movement. You want to be live part of it, right? And there is always going to be a place for linear content or free-to-air content, which is live, versus its availability on demand, right? So I think if we look a bit into the future, not today, because today we are still the mass reach audience, a bit into the future, it's going to be differentiation, right, of what is available to the streamers, to consumers on demand, because the new habits will come into the future, and what will be part of the new social culture, live events, sporting events. I'll tell you a story similar. I'm a big Formula One fan, but because for 15 years I live abroad and I can never watch local TV because it's always in different languages that I don't speak, I don't have any subscription in my home. I mean, no cable, nothing. So just a broadband home. So I had to buy an F1 app subscription so that I can watch Formula One races live, because there is no other way for me to access that content, right? And this is an example of how you want to see it live. You don't want to read in newspapers, right? what happened with the match. You want to be part of it because there is a drive, and it's not going to be the same if you watch it in replay or somewhere later. So I think there is a very interesting point on what is the differentiation of content, because content is still the major driver of someone coming to your channel at a certain point in time. I think that's absolutely the key.
To build on that, I think the one advantage that obviously streaming has a lot of advantages, but the one advantage that free TV has is you are able to tell stories across a long period of time. If you have like a daily soap, the characters become a part of your life and you form very strong bonds with them. And for example, the zoo show that I mentioned, it's on the air every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. And if you're working in a job that's not like really, you not feel that great, maybe you had a bad day at the office and then you go home and you realize, Jesus, I need to go to a tenant meeting, this is horrible. And you know that at 8 p.m. you will get your fix, you will get something that will help you go throughout the week, through the day, and maybe help you sleep a little bit easier. That's something that I think is a unique proposition that free-to-air has, to be sort of like a handrail, if you will, to guide you through the week. And as long as people have different needs, on one hand, sometimes you feel adventurous, you want to watch something new, or like you want to go to a Michelin star restaurant and get this long list of meals that you don't know how to pronounce and you don't know what's in them, and be adventurous. And on other days, you want to go to your grandma to the countryside and you don't want her to make you sushi, you want her to make you, the strawberry dumplings that you ate as a kid. And as long as people have these two different urges, these two different scratches that need to be filled, I think free-to-air and streaming will coexist and will serve different needs that we as audiences have.
Absolutely. I do want to raise one point, and probably everybody can add, is second screens, right? It's the obvious one, because free-to-air is great when you're home with the family in front of TV set, right? However, the culture, we are measuring multi-screen consumption across many countries, but specifically in Poland, we are measuring for 1.5 years what's happening on second screens, and it's actually adding 30 minutes of video consumption time spent across other screens, and the major screen is mobile phone. Right, and again, of course, in younger audiences, the share is bigger. That's all obvious because it's a different lifestyle. However, do we address them in the right way so that they can still access? Another trend that we have seen in the era of personalized content, when you have two, and on average, depending on a country, you've got between 1.5 to 2.5 TV screens at home. And if it's a 3-member family, everybody wants to watch what they want to watch. There are different preferences. And we also see in home very often second screens are happening while something is happening on TV. It means people are personalizing content. So having a solution to address those needs, and I know almost everybody from our clients are launching apps, and we encourage that, right? Not necessarily to expect 20% more viewing within 1 year, but this is a way to build those loyalties and those future customers and capture those incremental audiences, either out of home or very often it's actually happening in home.
But, yes.
No, go ahead.
No. It looked like you wanted
I'm
to
just
comment.
saying, I mean, but overall, important is you have content the audience wants, you know. So for us, we don't, so to say, we don't care if somebody is watching our content, consumption, linear or non-linear. We make sure that we find a way to reach him. And that's, I think, one strategic core point you have to keep in mind. To how to reach, to create products the audience wants. Plus, you need a lot of data and technology in our. I mean, I see now co-workers of mine I would not have seen 10 years ago. 10 years ago, those people would have been called nerds. But you need them now. You need data technology. This is a very important thing. Plus, the third thing is you need partnerships. That means, like last weekend, we streamed the biggest rock festival in Germany, which would have happened 10 years ago at MTV. Now it happens at RTL Plus. Plus, we do the sales for them, the ticket. We have, you know, within the company facilities like that. So this is, in our opinion, the 3 strategic core things we have to keep in mind. I always compare it with a supermarket, you know. You may go into a supermarket and buy it there, go home, take it to your car, or you call the delivery service. I mean, the important thing is you call this one supermarket.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So we had, I'm going to come back to you, Katerina, on this in a while. Just wanted to put another topic on the table, because we keep saying reaching mass audience and diversifying platforms and getting young audience and creating content that's going to travel across different platforms and using second screen. But we still need to monetize all of those views, which, for example, in Serbia, where I come from, we're still not being able to measure the exact reach of everything that we're doing. We're advertising model. I mean, we live on advertising, not on subscriptions, and we have disruptors in the market, to call them that way, that are subscription-based. So our strategy is probably going to be to move into subscription as well. And as we heard recently, Netflix is thinking about introducing advertisements. So we are probably going to go into each other's pockets, obviously. But can you tell us shortly how is Nielsen planning on maybe solving these issues of measuring across devices, platforms, delayed viewing? So
I'll talk about whether on-demand should be streaming by subscription or should be advertising. I think advertising is not a problem for a consumer. It's the certain freedom to choose and the ability to watch anywhere. So I think we shouldn't be thinking, oh, is it only subscription or only advertising? It could be both on platforms. And I don't think advertising on a platform is a decision-making point for a consumer. It's not. It's content still, right? An ability to choose. From a measurement perspective, I'll give you 2 examples of what we are already doing in Poland, for example, right? With one of our biggest clients. We also do some of similar in Czech Republic. We also do, we are launching cross-media measurement in Denmark. We launched this year. So the way we do it, first we measure in the houses a streaming activity of across the screens, right? It's a separate piece of technology that we install in a household, and we actually see what is happening for how long on which connected device in the house. And we also see from where the streaming activity is happening. So from which IP address, is it Netflix, is it YouTube, is it any of local players that are available in the market? And this is how we measure this incremental time of streaming activity, video consumption inside a household on all the major screens. But this component is not with content. It's just we see how much extra time on which platform. Then to add on top, we work with broadcasters and owners of apps or different players to implement a Nielsen tag, an SDK basically, where we can then collect content. And then we marry those two data sets, right? We marry linear viewing with digital viewing across devices and actually get to a single rating. The alternative way to measure is to implement similar tags and start monetizing this content or this inventory the same way as digital is monetizing it through impressions, not GRPs, but through impressions, because that's how the digital world is operating today. You don't necessarily integrate it with the viewing, right, with linear viewing. You just monetize it separately through impressions. So there are two alternatives. Nielsen is kind of going into the direction of merging the two worlds and creating a single GRP for both linear and incremental digital. There is also important we start measuring out-of-home viewing in Poland, for example, where you actually capture, and that provides another 10% of viewing that is not captured in-house. Because as consumers' life evolves and lifestyle changes, you kind of need to capture, you need to increase that coverage of all the moments where consumption is happening. Either it's on digital or it's live somewhere, right, during an event or a sporting event. Sorry. So, to data science, I tried to keep it simple. At Nielsen, we don't know, simple is not easy.
It's not a choice.
Exactly.
No, but to come back to our main question, we spoke about it briefly, and there was a panel before this one about the trust that people have in the free-to-airs as already established brands in the market, and what we said earlier about it is a social thing. We're all watching the same thing at the same time. I'm sure that in terms of crisis, in terms of news portals as well, because they can be faster than free-to-airs, but still free-to-airs, I think, are the source of information that is most trusted. So we have seen that in terms of big events, breaking news, people do turn to, although they are maybe not regular viewers of free-to-airs, still in those kind of situations, they still turn to free-to-airs as the most trusted source. And I would like to go over this thing that we mentioned before. Like, do you think we're moving from scarcity of content like 20, 30, 50 years ago, only a few players, free-to-airs, linear watching, people have to find their destination and that's it. This is the station that they're watching and they're watching it throughout the day. And then we moved now into this abundance of content and quality content and many platforms and many ways of consuming content, and you can consume it anywhere and anything, and you can choose. But how do you feel about now? Is there an anxiety within the user when a person, after long hours of working and being stressed at work, comes home, and then he still has to work, or she? They have to make an analysis of what they want to watch. They have to check with their friends what's good. They turn on, I don't know, Netflix, and then there's 20 suggestions, and this is trending, and they don't know, and then they use Prime and Pixbox and HBO, and then in the end, they feel tired, and they come back to, this is my theory, come back to free-to-air. It's safe, it's familiar, it's comfortable, it's no work for them. I mean, is it the main thing for free-to-air to to keep its audience and just, I mean, having the right content and making this channel a destination that is familiar and safe for the viewer? Is that the key, maybe?
I think that the main topic here is then, and the answer is to build a great brand. And it's all about the branding and what this brand brings to you. For example, for you, for Prva TV, if you have this anxiety to search what you are going to watch on Netflix, or you missed some show, then the viewer knows that there is a good brand as Prva TV, that he or she can watch a great content. And this is how we are also building our digital brands. There is a lot of content. We are producing more than 60 videos per day. And we know that, that users cannot find all of this content, and it's it's hard to approach them. So the brand is the most important. And how this audience is emotional to that brand, and what emotions he or she relates to that brand. We see with the Jumbos, I mean, our teens are crying, you know, they're happy, and they do all the things with us and because of us. We were hacked like 3 weeks ago by some Russians. It was a hard time. And we had so much emails on our Instagram and TikToks. There was the audience was so eager to help us, so they couldn't find their content, and they wanted to help us. So the only reason for the FTAs and whoever creates some kind of content, with content you're building the brand. And that's the answer. I mean, for the advertisers at the end, and for the business at the end.
So Hartwig, do you maybe feel that RTL is a well-established brand already? Do you think it would be easier to fight the disruptions and keep the audience? And I mean, because if the brand is the most important thing, all you have to do is diversify maybe the way you're reaching young audience or following the trends that they are using, but still using your strong brand to, is this the main strategy?
Yes. Basically, that's exactly what we are focusing on. I mean, we got big brands, of course, and what we are doing is to provide the content to our audience wherever the audience is. So, like I said, like in 10 years ago, you didn't need any infrastructure, you didn't need any technical, you just were classic free-to-air. There was no technically need or knowledge needed. Now this changed, and you need to know where to get the audience. And so data is a very important thing. I mean, like, look at Netflix, for example. You hardly find any content guys, really content guys at Netflix, or like, let's put it the other way, there's a lot of technically engineers and data-driven knowledge where the audience is, and the content they are producing is also based on the data the Netflix is getting from the audience. So this is an important key. For us, it's very important to go into the next decade and to provide, to have content. That's what RTL was always strong in, and that's what made us big. And so this is our core asset, but we need to adapt to the technically adaptions which we see in the market, and the different fragmentation and different use and consumption of video content. And like one more sentence maybe, and I think we have a very successful story with our RTL Plus app. We have now almost 3 million subscribers within a short time. And the next big thing is we merged with the big German publisher, Gruner & Jahr. So we now have under one roof the TV stations, the radio, the magazines, the podcast, and we try to combine these products within one app. So this is basically for us the next step to still, and this is a topic we are sitting here, to reach the mass audience. So I think the fragmentation is there, but still, if you have products and you play like a magazine, you have like a food magazine. It's called Chef Koch in Germany. It's the name of the brand. So what we did is that we did a podcast now. We did a TV show on that in the morning at 11 o'clock, which is very successful. We had a radio show on that. So if you play all the different medias, all the different ways you reach your audience and you adapt the content to the audience, which you need to have, of course, journalists and editorial guys who knows the audience. But the key is, I think, to pack it to wrap it up in a new way, and then go to the audience. But overall, content
sorry for the
and
interruption,
brand
but do you think you can maybe reach new audiences online and on the magazine or digital or I don't know TikTok, but make the content so good and when you connect them to the content, can you move them to the linear TV maybe? Is that the strategy?
That's of course a strategy, but it can also be the other way around.
So they're moving away from linear free-to-air. We're trying to gather them around the different platforms and maybe come back to free-to-air.
Exactly. It can be in both ways,
And how do you think local, original content is important in terms of, from Serbian point of view, for example, we cannot create bigger and better drama series than HBO and Netflix, but we certainly can create better content for Serbian people if we are focusing locally with, tradition, drama, something specifically for our audience, since we're not global company, for example, for us the key is local and relevant to specifically our audience. So how do you all, maybe you go first, do you think local content, original content that is primarily targeting free-to-air audience in the country you're operating in is going to win over global content that is not specifically for...
Absolutely, and we've seen that happening, for a number of years. Just earlier this year, Czech TV, our competition, they had a show called The 90s, which was a crime show, 6-episode crime show based on the biggest crime cases from the 1990s. And on average, each episode has been viewed by 2.3, 2.4 million people in a country of 10 million. So basically 1 in 4 people, including kids and elderly, watched this one show. It was the highest rated show basically they had since 1997. And so obviously the local content is key because it's closer to you. You know the actors, you know the stories, and also the more content we see coming from the US, and I think this is, if there's one mistake I think the US networks and the US studios make, it's that everybody's trying to catch that one show like Game of Thrones or something that's going to have a mass appeal and it's going to be culturally really impactful. Like there will be TikToks, there will be Reddits, and everybody is trying to get that holy grail. And to me, they forgot about the mass appeal, but not so culturally relevant, but that's what's the bread and butter of the TV stations, the procedurals, the crime series, the medical series. I still remember coming to LA for the screenings and seeing a lot of shows that I would be happy to put on free TV. 2 weeks ago when we were there, I was seeing, well, this is something that, 6 episodes, it's very dark, it's very gritty. It may have a certain niche appeal on a streaming platform, but it will never work on a broad free-to-air network. So basically, we don't have a choice. We have to create our own content because the content that's coming in from the US more and more is not suitable for our needs.
Or they are keeping it for their platforms. I mean, we had experience like that as well, that no longer certain IPs are no longer available for free-to-airs or are, but a very short period of time, and they just want to keep it for the platform, for the strategy. So we I know it's the way, having local content in fighting with global players, but we have to move into original, creating our own IPs, since from my perspective, we don't know where it's going to go. I mean, if all the major players in the market decide that IP is the most valuable thing that they have, and they just stop selling the rights, we will have to all be very original and very creative, I think. So.
But I think the trend of creating local content has already started, also partially because of all the platforms now available, right? And I think yesterday there was a presentation where we saw that the share of American, right, or US content has decreased significantly even on streaming platforms. So I think local content will become important, but it's also an opportunity for local talent, right, and local production studios to kind of increase their presence, right, and as opposed to American content.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, we are coming into the age of golden age of production companies, where all these streaming platforms like RTL and others they're hungry for the good content, and they will buy a great content. So I think it's a great opportunity actually for all of us here in Croatia and in the region to focus on creating the originals, to find out what is popular in our neighborhoods. For us, for example, we couldn't pay any great sport event like UEFA Championship League or something like that. So we went and found out that there is a good tournament, that is MMA, and we have the exclusive rights for that. And we have in a peak more than 70,000 viewers of that live show. And that numbers are comparable with the most watched sport events on a linear channel. And now we lock it under the paywall, as we are the publisher company. And this is the content that drives the subscription base and drives a new revenue. And we see that kind of content, the content that will bring us to a new level. Yeah.
So since we're close to the end of this panel, can we all agree then free-to-air is here to stay and that it's still reaching the mass audience?
Of course.
And that there's probably good relation between the so-called disruptors in the market and free-to-airs, because new technology and the disruptors are going to push free-to-airs into new ways of creating content and new ways to reaching the audience, and vice versa. Maybe from what you were saying throughout this panel is that you are trying to get to mass audience and that you see maybe a future where some of the audience from digital platforms, streaming platforms will still move to FTAs. So briefly, maybe from each one of you, do you see the future where free-to-airs managed to move into digital and then all the new technology and maintain like first position in the market, or do you see maybe a future with a lot of diverse players in the market with no major players? How do you see the future?
How many years from now do we define the future? Crystal ball. We need a crystal ball.
10 years.
10 years?
Make it 10 years.
Yeah.
Make it 10 years. You want to start, Jan?
No, not really.
Yeah.
I don't think, personally, I don't think it will be a total domination of digital only, right? I don't think that's the real future, even 10 years from now. Because, you know, there is a saying that we tend to overestimate the change of the next 10 years, but underestimate the change in the next 3, right? So I don't think it will be total dominance of only digital, everyone on some kind of streaming platform in 10 years from now. No, because the wealth in the countries is not distributed equally. And the progress that people will be able to achieve in their lives 10 years from now as a society will not be equal across. It means that free-to-air channels will still be around, and they will still be probably dominant. However, at the same time, there will be a fierce competition for audiences and segments through the digital world, right? So I don't think we're looking 10 years from now in a world where free-to-air doesn't exist. I think it might change forms, but it is going to be a more fierce
Yeah, but do
competition.
you think FTA are going to move into the digital world and maybe own the market that way?
I think you have to. You have to. I think we talked a lot about it. This brand equity that we are talking about, you have a fantastic, all free-to-air have fantastic brand equity today, but you need to continue to build it with a new generation of audiences, and that's where digital will get you there, right? Like, it will be one of the entrance points to these new audiences to build brand equity with them.
We don't have the FTA, but we will be happy to have one. But I really think that one doesn't delete another one, that it will go together, that FTA it's a really stable business, and that the viewers will be there, and that from our side, like disruptors, we can just bring a better content to the second screen while somebody is watching the big screen.
Yes, it will be simultaneous watching.
Yeah.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
And
yeah.
Hartwig, do you want to comment on where do you see FTAs versus digital in the future?
I basically agree with both of them. I see the big competition within free-to-air broadcasters. We have seen that. So the competition will be less. The big competition will be between the streamers, and you probably will have 3 or 4 big streamers which dominate the world. You know, like Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, whoever, HBO Max, and plus you will have 1 or 2 streamers, national, local heroes, which pretty much, I think, dominated by formerly classic free-to-air channels who make their way to the non-digital way to reach the audience. You need to go where the audience is, and then you have success.
So in conclusion, I mean, it's very optimistic, actually. We're going to remain as FTAs dominant in local markets, and digital and new platforms are going to push us into moving forward and finding new ways to reach audience. On the other hand, digital is going to move into mass audiences with the things that you're already doing. And Nielsen is going to measure all of that, and we will all
All be happy and have drinks.
and the audience will get better content. So this is the end note of this panel. Everything is great, actually.
Everybody can go back to work, no worries.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.